I was only 19 when I wore the white dress. People clapped. They smiled at me. But inside, I felt like a child playing pretend. My hands were shaking. My heart was heavy. And when he whispered, "You are mine now," in my ear, I wanted to run. But I smiled instead. I told myself, love will grow later. I told myself, this is happiness. I didn't know then that marrying too young would break me. I was 19 when I married. It felt like a dream at first. A big white dress. Flowers everywhere. Family members smiling. Music playing in the background. It was a small hall in my town. But, to me, it looked like a palace. I thought my life was beginning. I thought I was stepping into something beautiful. I did not know. I was stepping into a storm. The day started with laughter. My cousins were dancing around me. They kept fixing my veil. They kept telling me, "You look like a princess." I smiled, but my smile was weak. Inside my heart, I was scared. Not scared of him. Not scared of marriage itself, but scared of losing myself. I remember standing in front of the mirror. I looked at the girl in white. Her eyes were wide. Her lips were painted red, but her soul still a child. I whispered to myself, "Am I ready?" The mirror did not answer, only silence. And silence sometimes tells the truth louder than words. My mother came in. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. She said, "You are growing up too fast." I laughed softly, but inside, I wanted her to stop the wedding. I wanted someone to say, "Wait," but no one did, because everyone thought marriage was the right step. Everyone thought happiness starts with a husband. No one asked, what about her dreams? He stood tall at the altar. His suit was black, his eyes shining with pride. When I walked towards him, everyone clapped. Everyone smiled, but I felt my knees shaking. I felt like a bird walking into a cage. The cage was decorated with flowers, but a cage is still a cage. When he took my hand, his grip was strong, almost too strong. He leaned close. He whispered, "You are mine now." I smiled at him, but inside, I felt a lock clicking shut, a door closing forever. I told myself, this is love. I told myself, I will grow into this role. I told myself, everything will be fine. The ceremony ended. Everyone ate and laughed. My friends teased me. They said, "You will be so happy together." I nodded. I wanted to believe them, but I could feel a small shadow. It was hiding in the corner of my heart, whispering, "This is too fast." We moved into his family's house, a big house with many rooms. His parents welcomed me. They smiled at me, but their smiles had rules inside them, unspoken rules. I had to cook. I had to clean. I had to serve tea when guests arrived, and always smile. At first I tried. I woke up early. I made breakfast. I folded his clothes. I waited for him at the door when he came home from work. And when he smiled at me, I felt proud, like I was doing something right, like I was finally becoming the wife everyone wanted me to be. But sometimes, late at night, I looked out the window. I saw the moon. I remembered the dreams I once had. Dreams of studying more. Dreams of traveling. Dreams of writing. And my chest felt heavy, because those dreams were slowly slipping away from me. He was kind in the beginning. He brought me flowers sometimes. He told me I was beautiful, and I believed him. I wanted to believe in us. I wanted to believe this was real love. We laughed at silly jokes. We went on walks in the evening, and for a while, I thought maybe I could be happy. But even in those happy days, there were small cracks that no one else saw, cracks that grew quietly. One day, I asked if I could continue my studies. He frowned. He said, "Why do you need that now?" I stayed silent. Another day, I wanted to meet my old friends. He said a wife should stay home. And I stayed silent again. Every silence built a wall, and I was on the inside of it, alone. I remember one evening, there was a family dinner. Everyone laughing, everyone eating. I sat next to him. I looked at his face, and I realized I did not really know him, not his fears, not his secrets, not his true self. He was still a stranger wearing the title of husband. That night, I lay awake, listening to his breathing. The room was dark, but my thoughts were louder than ever. I kept asking myself, what if I made a mistake? I was too young to know the answer, but old enough to feel the weight of the question. Marriage felt like a locked book, a book I had opened too soon, a story I did not know how to read. And the more I tried, the more lost I felt. Everyone around me thought I was lucky, but inside, I felt trapped between duty and desire. And deep down, I knew something was waiting ahead, something that would change everything. But I pushed the thought away. I told myself, you will adjust. I told myself, this is what life is. I did not know then that the storm was already on its way. The early months of our marriage felt soft, like walking inside a dream, a fragile dream. but still a dream. He would bring me small gifts, a bar of chocolate, a flower from the garden, a book with a sweet note inside. And when he gave them, I felt like maybe, just maybe, this could be love. Sometimes in the evenings, we sat outside on the balcony, the sky painted with orange light, birds flying back to their nests. He would hold my hand, and we would talk about his work, about our families, about what kind of house we wanted in the future. And in those moments, I felt safe. I felt wanted. I thought, maybe this is happiness. He laughed often. His laugh was strong. And when he laughed, I laughed too, not because the joke was funny, but because his joy made me believe that we were okay, that I had chosen right, that maybe marrying young was not a mistake after all. On Sundays, we visited his relatives. The house was always loud, children running around, women cooking in the kitchen, men sitting outside with tea. I would sit with the women, listening to their stories, learning how to cook new dishes. They told me, "You are lucky, your husband is a good man." And I nodded, smiling, hiding the small doubts inside me. Sometimes he was tender. He would brush the hair away from my face. He would look into my eyes and say, "You are beautiful when you are quiet." At that time, I thought it was love. I thought he meant, "You look peaceful." But later, I realized the truth. He liked me more when I had no voice, when I had no opinion, when I was just a picture in his life. But in the early days, I ignored those shadows, because there were also mornings full of warmth. He would bring me tea in bed. He would joke about how messy my hair looked. I would hit him softly with a pillow, and he would laugh again. It felt normal. It felt like what marriage should be. And I held on to those moments because they made me forget the fear in my chest. We took walks in the park, the grass green beneath our feet, children playing with balloons, old couples sitting on benches. I watched them. I thought, maybe one day we will be like them. I thought, maybe our love will grow with time. I believed love was something that could be built, brick by brick, day by day. And I was ready to work for it, even if he wasn't. In those early months, we talked about our future, where we wanted to live, how many children we wanted, what kind of life we imagined. He said, "You will be the heart of our home." I said, "And you will be the strength of it." We smiled at each other, and it felt like a promise, a fragile promise, but I held on to it tightly. There were nights of comfort too, when the world outside felt far away, and it was just us, two young souls, trying to understand what marriage really means. He would hold me close, and for a moment, I forgot the doubts. I forgot the questions. All I knew was his warmth and the sound of his heartbeat. I told myself, love is like this, not always fireworks, not always passion. Sometimes it is small gestures, a smile across the room, a hand reaching for yours, a laugh shared in silence. I wanted to believe that so badly, because if I didn't, then what else did I have? But even in those good times, there were things I noticed. He did not like it when I spoke too much in front of others. He did not like it when I laughed too loudly. He did not like it when I asked questions about his day. He would frown, and I would quickly change the subject. I told myself this is normal. I told myself, all men are like this. But deep down, a small voice whispered, no, something is wrong. Still, I chose not to listen, because the bond we had, the laughter, the small gifts, the evening walks, they felt real. And I want to keep them safe, like fragile glass in my hands, afraid that if I looked too closely, the glass would crack, and everything would fall apart. There were days when he would surprise me. He would take me to the market, buy me bangles that shone in the sunlight, buy me sweets wrapped in colorful paper, and I would smile so wide. I felt like a little girl again. He looked at me then and said softly, "This is why I married you. You make me feel young." And my heart believed him, because in that moment, it sounded like love. And yet, even in the sweetness, there were silences, heavy silences, when he came home late, when he did not answer my questions, when he turned away in bed. I ignored them, because I wanted to keep our bond strong, because I thought silence was better than conflict. But those silences were not empty. They were filled with secrets, secrets I did not know yet, but would soon discover. I told myself, every marriage has ups and downs. I told myself, we are young, we will learn together. I told myself, love takes time, and maybe, for a while, I even believed it, because in between the doubts, there were still moments of joy, moments that painted over the cracks, like a thin coat of paint on a broken wall. The wall looked beautiful, but deep inside, it was already weak, and I did not know then that one day, that wall would break completely, and everything I built on it would come crashing down. At first the shadows were small, so small I thought I could ignore them. But slowly they grew larger. They grew louder. until I could no longer pretend. He started coming home late. Sometimes he said it was work. Sometimes he said he was with friends. But the way he said it, the way his eyes looked away from mine, it made me feel something was wrong. One evening, I cooked his favorite dish. I waited for him. The food went cold. Hours passed. When he finally came, he smiled weakly. He said, "I was busy." I asked, "Busy with what?" He frowned. He said, "Why do you ask so many questions?" I stayed silent, but my heart was not silent. It screamed, something is not right. There were other changes too. He stopped giving me small gifts. He stopped holding my hand during walks. He stopped laughing as much. And when I asked him what was wrong, he said nothing, always nothing. But nothing felt heavier than everything. His family started noticing too. His mother said he is stressed from work. His father said, "Men get busy sometimes." And I nodded, pretending I understood, pretending I believed. But late at night, when I lay awake, I thought, was it me? Did I do something wrong? He grew colder, not always cruel, but distant, like a wall slowly building between us. I tried to climb the wall. I tried to reach him, with love, with patience, with kindness, but every time, he pulled further away. I remember one day, I found a message on his phone, a woman's name, a short text, "See you soon." My hands shook, my chest grew tight. I wanted to ask, I wanted to scream, but fear held me back. What if it was nothing? What if he got angry? So I closed the phone, and closed my mouth, but I could not close my heart, because it was bleeding quietly. That night, I looked at him as he slept, his face calm, peaceful, as if he had no secrets, and I thought how easy it is for him to rest, to smile, to pretend. While I carried the weight of silence, the cracks became sharper. He began to correct me in front of others. If I spoke too much, he glared. If I laughed too loudly, he whispered stop. If I shared an opinion, he rolled his eyes. And every time, I shrank a little more. I became smaller, quieter, almost invisible. But inside, something was burning. A quiet fire, made of hurt, made of anger, made of betrayal. I pushed it down, because I still loved him. Or maybe, I loved the memory of who he used to be. The man who brought me flowers. The man who laughed with me on the balcony. But that man was gone. And in his place, was someone I did not know. One afternoon, I visited my parents. My mother looked at me closely. She asked, "Are you happy?" I forced a smile. I said, "Yes, I am fine." But she touched my hand and whispered, "Your eyes tell another story." I wanted to cry then, but I held back the tears, because I was ashamed. Ashamed to admit my marriage was breaking. Ashamed to admit I had lost myself. Envy also grew inside me. When I saw couples holding hands in the street, when I saw friends posting pictures of love and laughter, I felt a pain deep inside. Why not me? Why not us? Why was my love fading while theirs seemed to shine brighter? He started keeping secrets. He hid his phone when he texted. He closed his laptop when I walked by. He left the house without telling me where he was going. And when I asked, he snapped, "Don't question me." I nodded, but my heart whispered, he is hiding something. I began to lose myself even more. I stopped meeting friends. I stopped asking questions. I stopped dreaming. All I did was wait. Wait for him to notice me again. Wait for him to smile at me again. Wait for him to love me again. But the waiting never ended, and the love never returned. At night, I lay in bed, listening to the silence between us. It was louder than any fight, because fights mean passion. Fights mean someone still cares. But silence. Silence means emptiness. And emptiness means the end is near. One evening, I gathered courage. I looked at him, and I said, "Do you still love me?" He looked at me, his eyes cold, and he said, "Why do you always need answers?" I froze, because that was an answer in itself. A cruel answer, but still an answer. I started feeling like a stranger in my own home. The rooms felt bigger, the walls colder, the days longer, and even when he sat next to me, I felt alone, lonelier than I had ever been. The cracks were no longer hidden. They were everywhere, in his silence, in his anger, in my tears, in my heart, and I knew something was coming, something I could not stop, something that would break everything. The days kept passing, but the silence between us grew louder. Every meal felt cold. Every glance felt empty. It was like living with a stranger who once promised me forever. I tried to save us. I cooked his favorite meals. I wore the dresses he liked. I waited for him at the door, but nothing worked. He barely looked at me. He barely spoke to me. And when he did, his words were sharp, sharp enough to cut my heart into pieces. Sometimes, he came home with a smell that was not mine, a perfume too sweet, a perfume I never wore. I noticed it once, then twice, then again and again. Each time, my chest tightened, my mind screamed, but my lips stayed quiet, because I was afraid of the truth. I began to watch him closely, the way he smiled at his phone, the way he hid it under the pillow, the way he stepped outside to take calls. Every sign pointed to something I was not ready to face, something that would change my life forever. My dreams of love were slipping away, one by one, like stars fading from the night sky. And I was left in darkness, a darkness that grew heavier each day, a darkness that whispered, "He is not yours anymore." I remember one morning, I asked him gently, "Are you happy with me?" He stared at me, his eyes cold, and he said, "Why do you always ask stupid questions?" I forced a smile, but inside, I broke again, because his answer was not just cruel, it was empty, and emptiness hurts more than anger. The house itself felt different. The walls no longer safe, the rooms no longer warm. Every corner carried shadows. Shadows of doubt, shadows of fear, shadows of betrayal. And I could not escape them. Even in family gatherings, I felt the change. He avoided my touch. He avoided my eyes. People asked, "Are you okay?" I smiled. I said yes, but deep inside, the truth was burning, and no smile could hide it. One evening, I saw him dressing carefully, fixing his shirt, checking his hair. He looked more alive than I had seen in months. I asked softly, "Where are you going?" He said quickly, "Work, dinner." But his eyes told another story. And for the first time, I felt anger rise in me. Strong, hot, uncontrollable anger. I wanted to shout. I wanted to demand the truth. But instead, I bit my tongue because I was scared of what the truth would destroy, scared of who I would become once I knew. At night, I lay awake again, my body next to his, but my soul far away. I stared at the ceiling. I whispered to myself, "Is this marriage or prison?" The silence answered, and silence always tells the truth. My reflection in the mirror began to change. I no longer saw a young bride. I no longer saw hope. I saw tired eyes, shaking hands, a broken smile, a girl pretending to be a wife, pretending to be strong, pretending everything was fine, when nothing was fine. Sometimes I thought about running, leaving everything behind, going back to my parents, but then I remembered their proud faces at my wedding, their belief in my future, and I felt trapped again, because leaving meant failure, and I was too scared to fail. The cracks were now everywhere, in his lies, in his silences, in my tears, and in my dreams that no longer shined. It was only a matter of time before something shattered completely. One night, I stood by the window, the moon shining above, the world outside quiet. I whispered to myself, "Something is coming." I did not know what. I did not know when, but I felt it in my bones. A storm, a betrayal, a truth that would break everything. And when it arrived, I knew my life would never be the same again. The truth came to me one evening. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was quiet, almost too quiet. But it broke me louder than any scream. He was in the shower. His phone buzzed on the table. I looked at it without meaning to. The screen lit up, and there it was. A message, a woman's name, a heart emoji, and words that cut deeper than a knife. "I miss your touch." My hands began to shake. My chest felt tight. The world around me blurred. It was as if time stopped. Only those words remained, burning into my eyes, burning into my soul. I told myself, maybe it is nothing. Maybe it is a joke. Maybe I read it wrong. But then another message came. "Last night was perfect. When can I see you again?" And in that moment, my world collapsed. I dropped the phone. It fell to the floor. But the sound of it did not matter, because the sound inside me, the breaking of my heart, was louder than anything else. He came out of the shower, smiling, drying his hair with a towel. He saw me standing there, frozen, shaking. His smile faded, his eyes grew sharp, and he whispered, "What did you see?" I wanted to scream, I wanted to cry, but only one sentence came out. "You lied to me." For a moment, he looked shocked, but then, he laughed, a cold laugh. He said, "You should not touch my phone." I stared at him, tears running down my face, and I whispered again, "You lied to me." He did not comfort me. He did not deny it. He only said, "It is not what you think." But the words on the screen were burned into me, and no excuse, no lie, could erase them. That night, I could not sleep. I lay next to him, but I felt like I was lying next to a stranger. His body was there, but his love, his heart, were somewhere else, with someone else. I closed my eyes, but the messages kept flashing before me. I miss your touch. Last night was perfect. I covered my ears, but the words screamed inside my head, over and over, until my pillow was wet with tears. The next morning, he acted normal. He drank his tea. He read the newspaper, as if nothing had happened, as if my heart was not lying broken at his feet. And that made it worse, because his calmness was proof that he did not care. Not anymore. I tried to ask again. I said softly, "Who is she?" He looked at me, his eyes cold, and he said, "Don't make trouble." That was all. Don't make trouble. As if my pain was a noise. As if my betrayal was a small thing to ignore. I felt invisible. I felt worthless. I felt like a ghost in my own life. But deep inside, a spark lit up. A dangerous spark. A spark of anger. A spark of revenge. The betrayal was real now. No more doubts. No more silence. The truth was here, and I had to face it. But how? I was too broken to fight. Too scared to leave. Too ashamed to tell anyone. But that spark inside me whispered, "You cannot let this go. You cannot stay silent forever." That day, I walked through the house like a shadow. Every corner reminded me of our past. The balcony where we once laughed. The kitchen where we once cooked together. The bed where we once dreamed of the future. Now, all of it felt poisoned. Poisoned by lies. Poisoned by betrayal. When he came home that night, I could not look at him. His smile felt fake. His touch felt heavy. His voice felt hollow. And I realized the man I married no longer existed. He was gone. And in his place was someone cruel. Someone selfish. Someone who broke me. And in that brokenness, I felt something growing. Something dangerous. Something sharp. It was not just pain anymore. It was anger. It was hunger. It was revenge. The days after the betrayal felt unreal. I walked through life like a ghost. My body was present, but my soul was gone. It was lost in questions. Questions that had no answers. How long had he been lying to me? Was it only messages? Or was it more? Did he ever love me? Or was everything a lie from the start? These questions haunted me. Every morning. Every night. Even in my dreams. I could not escape them. Sometimes, I told myself, maybe it was just a mistake. Maybe it happened only once. Maybe he will stop. Maybe he still loves me. But then I remembered the messages. The words last night was perfect. And I knew it was not a mistake. It was a choice. And he had chosen someone else. I tried to talk to him again. I whispered, "Please tell me the truth." He looked at me, with eyes colder than winter, and said, "You imagine too much." Those words hit me harder than a slap. Because he was not only betraying me, he was making me doubt myself, making me feel crazy, making me feel weak. I stopped smiling. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. My body was alive, but my spirit was dying. Slowly, painfully, and he did not care. Or maybe he enjoyed watching me break. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tear his lies apart. But every time I opened my mouth, fear closed it again. Fear of what he might say. Fear of what I might hear. Fear of a truth that could crush me completely. One night, I sat alone by the window. The world outside was sleeping. But inside me, a storm was raging. Tears rolled down my face. I whispered to myself, "Why me? What did I do wrong?" And then another whisper came, from deep inside, not of sadness, but of fire. It said, "You did nothing wrong." He did. That voice grew louder, day after day, until I could no longer ignore it. At first it was soft, a seed in my chest. But seeds grow, and this one was made of anger. It began to take root. It began to spread, until I could feel it everywhere inside me. I started to imagine things. What if I showed the messages to his family? What if I told the whole world who he really was? What if I destroyed him the way he destroyed me? The thoughts scared me, but they also thrilled me, because for the first time in months, I felt a little power return, a little control, and I wanted more. Still, there was denial inside me too. A small part of me whispered, maybe he'll change. Maybe he'll come back to me. Maybe our love is not dead yet. But then I saw him leaving the house with his phone hidden. I saw the perfume on his shirt again. I saw the coldness in his eyes. And I knew denial was only another lie I told myself. The truth was clear. He was gone. Gone to another woman. Gone from me forever. The pain became a constant companion. It followed me everywhere. In the kitchen, in the bedroom, in the street. Even when I smiled at others. The pain was there, laughing at me, reminding me that I was betrayed. But anger began to rise too. Slowly, quietly, like a fire in the dark. Every time I looked at his face. Every time I heard his excuses. Every time I smelled that perfume, the fire grew stronger, until the pain and anger mixed together, creating something new, something dangerous, something called revenge. I started to test the thought in my mind. What if I hurt him back? Not with knives, not with fists, but with something sharper, something colder, something that would cut his pride, his lies, his double life. What if I gave him a taste of his own betrayal? The idea scared me, because I was not that kind of person. I was soft. I was quiet. I was the girl who smiled even when she was hurting. But betrayal changes people. And it was changing me every day, every hour, every breath. I began to watch him differently, not as a husband, but as an enemy. Every word he said, every lie he told, every step he took. I studied him, like a hunter studies prey, waiting, planning. At night, while he slept peacefully, I lay awake, my mind racing, my heart pounding, imagining ways to make him feel my pain, ways to make him cry as I cried, ways to make him regret every message, every kiss, every lie. And for the first time, my tears dried, because they were turning into something else. Not weakness, not sadness, but strength. A strength born from rage, a strength born from betrayal, a strength that whispered to me again and again, do not forgive, do not forget, make him pay. That was the night. The seed of revenge fully took root in me, and I knew my life was about to change forever. The decision was made in silence, not with shouts, not with promises, but with one quiet thought in the middle of the night. He must feel what I felt. I no longer wanted to cry. I no longer wanted to beg. I wanted justice. Or maybe it was not justice. Maybe it was only revenge. But to me, they felt the same. The first step was watching him closely. Every time he left the house, I watched where he went, how long he stayed, what lies he used when he came back. At first, I only listened. I only observed. But slowly, I began to collect. I kept a secret notebook, hidden under my clothes in the wardrobe. Inside it, I wrote every detail. The time he left, the time he returned, the words he used, the excuses he repeated. And sometimes, when I was brave enough, I even followed him. One evening, I saw him with her, a woman with dark hair and red lips. They sat in a cafe, laughing, smiling, holding hands under the table. It was like a knife inside me. But I did not cry, not this time. Instead, I wrote it down. Her face, her smile, her laugh, because knowledge was power. And now, I was collecting power. Still, fear lived inside me. What if someone found my notebook? What if he discovered I was following him? What if she saw me? The thought made my heart race, made my palms sweat, because if they knew, they would laugh at me. They would call me pathetic. They would crush me even more. I had to be careful, very careful. At night, I stared at the ceiling, and I imagined different plans. Should I tell his family? Should I post the messages online? Should I call her husband, if she had one? Every option came with danger. Every option came with risk. But every option also came with a taste of satisfaction. And that taste, that sweet taste, kept me awake, hungry for more. Sometimes, I looked at him while he slept, his face calm, his breathing slow, and I whispered to myself, you think you are safe, you think you are clever, but you have no idea what waits for you. In the daylight, I acted normal. I cooked, I cleaned, I smiled when neighbors passed by. I wore the mask of the good wife. But inside, I was building a secret world. A world where I was no longer weak. A world where I would win. The first tool of my revenge was truth. Truth written on paper. Truth hidden in screenshots. Truth ready to be revealed when the right time came. I collected proof. Every message. Every photo. Every call log. Piece by piece. The puzzle was forming, and soon, the whole picture would be complete. Still, a voice of doubt lived inside me. It whispered, what if this destroys everything? What if you regret it later? What if revenge eats you alive instead of him? Sometimes, that voice made me pause, made me wonder if I was walking into fire. But then I remembered his lies, his cold eyes, her red lips, their laughter together, and the doubt disappeared, burned by anger, replaced by desire. I began to test my power in small ways. Once, I moved his phone when he wasn't looking. He searched for it desperately. Sweating, shaking, I watched silently, my heart beating fast, because I saw his fear, and it felt good. Another time, I erased a small number from his notebook, just to see him panic when he could not find it again. It felt good. Small acts, tiny seeds, but they made me stronger, and showed me I could hurt him without him knowing it was me. But I wanted more. I wanted something bigger, something unforgettable, a revenge that would make him fall to his knees. But that kind of revenge was dangerous. It could destroy me too. And I knew, if anyone found out it was me, my life would be ruined. Still, the fire inside me was too strong. I could not put it out. So I whispered to myself again, be patient, be clever, wait for the right moment. And while I waited, I smiled at him across the dinner table. I laughed at his empty jokes. I touched his hand softly, like the perfect wife. But inside, my mind was sharpening. My heart was hardening. My plan was forming. I was no longer the girl who cried. I was no longer the girl who begged. I was becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone darker, someone ready to fight fire with fire. And as I closed my notebook one night, I whispered to myself, soon, very soon, he will know my pain. The day of my first move came quietly. There was no storm, no warning, only silence. A silence that carried a secret fire inside me. I woke up early. I made breakfast like always. I placed the food on the table. He ate without looking at me, just scrolling on his phone, laughing at something that was not mine. And in that moment, I decided today is the day. I waited until he left for work. Then I opened my notebook. I pulled out the photos I had taken, the screenshots I had saved, the truth I had collected piece by piece. And I whispered, now it begins. I did not go to his family first. No, that would be too loud, too quick. I wanted to start small, silent, invisible. So I sent the first picture, from a number he didn't know, to his phone. Just one photo, him and her, holding hands at the cafe. No words, no name, only truth. When he came home that night, I watched him carefully. He walked in slower. He kept looking at his phone, his forehead tense, his lips tight. He barely touched his food. He barely looked at me. And I knew he had seen it. Later, when he thought I was asleep, he stepped outside to call someone. His voice was low, urgent, angry, but I heard enough. Someone knows, he said. Someone is watching us. I closed my eyes, and I smiled quietly, because for the first time, he was the one afraid. The next day, he was restless, checking his phone every few minutes, snapping at me for no reason, walking around the house like a man with fire under his skin. And I acted calm, soft, silent, like nothing was wrong. But inside, I was burning with satisfaction. Still, fear was there too. What if he guessed it was me? What if he checked my things? What if he found my notebook? My heart raced each time he opened a drawer. Each time he stepped near the wardrobe. The risk was real, and it made every moment sharper, darker, more dangerous. But I was careful. I kept my mask on. I spoke gently. I smiled at him. I touched his arm. And every time I did, he looked more confused, because he thought, could it be her? No, she's too quiet, too loyal. And that confusion, that doubt, protected me. A week later, I made my second move. This time, I printed one of the photos and slipped it into his office bag, hidden between his files. I knew he would find it at work. I knew it would shake him again. And when he returned that night, his face was pale, his hands trembling. He snapped at me for small things, the salt in the food, the noise of the TV. But I stayed calm, because I knew it wasn't the salt, it wasn't the TV, it was the fear of being caught, the fear of losing everything. And with that fear, the balance began to shift. For months, he had made me weak. For months, he had controlled my nights with lies. But now I had a secret power, and every day, it grew stronger. Still, the danger was always there. One mistake, one slip, and he would know it was me. And then, the revenge would turn against me. That thought followed me like a shadow, even in my sleep, even in my dreams. But even with that fear, I could not stop, because the fire inside me was too strong, too hungry, too alive. The first ripples of my revenge were clear. He started avoiding her. Their meetings became fewer, their calls shorter. And sometimes, when he thought I wasn't looking, he stared at me, suspicious, nervous, as if he wanted to ask, was it you? But he never did, because asking would mean admitting, and admitting would mean the truth. And the truth was, I had begun to win. One evening, I sat by the window again, the moon shining above, the city quiet, and I whispered, this is only the beginning, because deep inside, I knew the biggest move was still waiting, the move that would break him completely, the move that would make him feel the same emptiness he gave me, the move that would change everything forever. And when that day arrived, there would be no turning back. The time for small games was over. The The whispers, the hints, the shadows. They had done their work. Now it was time for light, for truth, for destruction. I sat at the table one night, alone, the house quiet, my heart calm but burning, and I thought, how do I end this? How do I make him feel what I felt? Then the answer came. Simple, sharp, final. I would not only show him, I would show everyone, the family, the friends, the people who thought we were perfect. They would see the truth with their own eyes. So I made a plan, a dangerous plan, a plan that could break me too, but I did not care anymore, because my love was already broken. And when love dies, fear dies too. I started by gathering everything, every picture, every message, every proof of his betrayal. I placed them in a folder, hidden under my clothes. My hands shook as I touched them, but it was not weakness. It was power. And power feels strange when you have been weak for too long. The perfect time came soon. His sister's birthday. A family gathering. Everyone would be there, laughing, smiling, drinking tea, thinking life was sweet. And I would break that sweetness with one strike. The night before, I could not sleep. I lay awake, my heart racing, my body hot with fear and thrill. I whispered again and again, this is it, because I knew, once I stepped into that house, nothing would be the same again. The day arrived. I dressed slowly, not as his wife, not as the quiet girl, but as someone new, someone strong, someone ready to burn the lies. He noticed the difference. He asked softly, "Why are you dressed like this?" I smiled. I said, "It's a special day." And he believed me, because he always underestimated me. At the gathering, the house was full, voices everywhere, children laughing, cups clinking, and in the middle of it all, he stood with his fake smile, his fake laugh, his fake life. I watched him, and my chest burned with anger, but I kept calm. I smiled too. I poured tea. I greeted everyone, because the storm must be quiet before it explodes. Finally, when everyone was seated, talking, relaxed, I stood up, and I spoke. "I have something to share." The room grew quiet. Every eye turned to me, even his face pale, his smile fading. I pulled out the folder, slowly, deliberately, and I said, "For years, I loved him, trusted him, believed in him, but behind my back, he betrayed me." Gasps filled the room. Murmurs spread. His mother shook her head. His sister's eyes widened, and he froze, his lips parting, his hands trembling. I opened the folder, and one by one, I placed the photos on the table. Him and her, hand in hand, smiling, living the love he promised me. Silence crushed the air, the kind of silence that hurts, the kind of silence that destroys. Finally, he whispered, "This is not what it looks like." And I answered, "Then tell them. Tell them what it is. Tell them why your hands were not mine. Tell them why your lips were not mine." He had no words, only fear, only shame. And in that moment, I felt my first taste of justice. But it was not over. No, this was only the beginning of the fire. Because once a secret is open, it spreads like smoke. And smoke always finds its way into every room. The silence in the room was heavy, like a storm pressing down on everyone. No one moved. No one breathed. And then, the whispers began. His mother's voice shook. This cannot be true. Her eyes begged me to take the words back. But I did not. I stood tall, and I said, "It is true, every picture here, every word, it is all real." He tried to speak, his voice breaking. "She is lying, she made this up. I would never." But his hands betrayed him. They shook. His eyes betrayed him. They darted around the room. And everyone could see it. Everyone could feel it. His father slammed the table. "Enough," he shouted. "Do not insult us with more lies." The children stopped laughing. The cups stopped clinking. The air turned heavy with shame. I looked at him, straight into his eyes. And I said quietly, "You told me I was everything to you, but to her you gave the same words." He stepped closer, his voice low, desperate. "It was a mistake. I was weak, but I love you, only you." I shook my head. "No, you loved yourself and your lies more than me." His sister spoke next, her voice sharp like glass. "You brought shame to us. You played with her heart, with all of us." He turned to her quickly. "No, you don't understand. It was not like that." But she cut him with one line. "Then tell us, why are these pictures here? Why is the proof in front of us?" He had no answer, only silence, only a broken face. I looked at the family, and I spoke again. I gave him everything. I left my own world to join his. I trusted him with my soul, and this is how he held it. Tears burned in my eyes, but I let them fall, not as weakness, but as truth. Because the truth deserves tears. He tried again, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away and whispered, "Don't touch me." That whisper hit harder than a scream. He froze, his hand falling to his side, his chest rising fast, his face turning pale. His uncle spoke next, his voice full of anger. "You had a wife, a home, and you chose dirt. You chose betrayal." The shame spread like fire. Every face turned cold. Every voice cut him deeper. And he stood there, shaking, falling apart. I leaned closer, just enough for him to hear, and I said, "Now you feel it, the weight, the burn, the same pain you gave me?" His eyes filled with fear, with regret. But it was too late, because once trust dies, it never comes back. He shouted suddenly, "Stop this. Stop, all of you." His voice cracked. It echoed. But no one listened, because lies lose power when truth stands tall. His mother covered her face. His father turned away. And the room that once welcomed him, now rejected him, piece by piece. I stood in the center, not as the broken girl anymore, but as the one holding the truth. And the truth was stronger than him, stronger than his excuses, stronger than his lies. Finally he whispered to her, "I was just lonely. I made a mistake. Please forgive me." But I answered with cold silence, because forgiveness was not mine to give. Not after all the nights I cried. Not after all the lies he told. His family looked at me, their faces heavy with sorrow, and I said softly, "I did not want this. I did not plan for this pain. But when he broke me, I had to rise. I had to show the truth." They nodded slowly, because they knew, because they saw, because truth has its own light. And, in that moment, he fell to his knees, hands covering his face. A man destroyed by the fire, he lit himself. I watched, and inside me, there was no joy, no laughter, only a heavy silence, because revenge does not taste sweet. It tastes like ashes. But it was not over yet. No, the final blow was still waiting. The confrontation that would end everything, forever. The room was still heavy with silence. Everyone's eyes were on him, on the man who once stood proud, now broken on his knees. But deep inside me, I knew this was not the end, not yet, because pain like mine deserved a final answer. I stepped closer to him, the folder still in my hands, the proof of his betrayal burning between us. He whispered again, "Please, please don't do this." I looked at him, cold, steady, and I said, "You already did this the moment you touched her, the moment you lied to me." His face twisted, tears filled his eyes, but I felt nothing, no softness, no mercy. I turned to his family and spoke clearly, "I will not live in this house again. I will not share my life with him again. From today, I walk away." Gasps filled the room. His mother cried out, "No, please stay. We can fix this." But I shook my head. There is no fixing betrayal. There is only truth, and the truth is clear tonight. He grabbed my arm suddenly, his grip weak but desperate. "You cannot leave me. You are my wife." I pulled my arm back, and I said slowly, "Not anymore. Tonight, you are no husband. You are just a liar." His father's voice thundered again. "Let her go. You lost her with your sins." He broke, truly broke, his chest heaving, his cries raw, and he whispered again and again, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." But sorry was dust now. Sorry could not bring back my trust. Sorry could not erase the nights I bled inside. I opened the folder one last time. I held up the final picture, the one that cut me the deepest, and I placed it in his trembling hands. "This," I said, "this is the moment you killed us. Look at it, hold it, because it is the last thing I give you." He stared at it, his body shaking, his lips trembling, and then he dropped it, as if it burned his skin. The room was still, the family broken, the children silent, and I stood tall. I walked to the door, every step heavy, but steady, because I knew this was the last step of my revenge. He called out, his voice cracking, "Please, don't leave me like this." I stopped at the door. I turned one last time, and I whispered, "You left me long before tonight. You left me the day you betrayed me." His body collapsed to the floor, a man ruined by his own choices, and I walked out, my head high, my heart scarred, but my spirit free. The night air hit my face, cold, sharp, like a blade cutting chains, and I breathed. For the first time in years, I truly breathed. Behind me, I could hear voices, crying, shouting, breaking, but they were only echoes now. Echoes of a world I no longer belonged to. I stepped into the dark street, alone, but stronger than ever before. And in that silence, I realized revenge was never about him. It was about me. It was about taking back my voice, taking back my life. I had given him love, and he gave me lies. But tonight, I gave him truth, and truth is sharper than any blade. I walked away, and with every step, the weight of years lifted, the chains fell, the fire inside me burned brighter. And though my heart was still scarred, I knew one thing. I was free, forever free. The night I walked away, it felt like stepping out of a storm. The air was cold, the street empty, but inside me something shifted. For the first time in years, I was not carrying his lies. I was not carrying his betrayal. I was carrying only myself. The silence was strange. It echoed louder than any scream, because when you love someone too deeply, their absence feels like fire and ice at once. I kept walking, each step heavy with memory, each step lighter with freedom. But freedom does not mean peace. Not at once, because revenge gives power, and power tastes sharp. But when the taste fades, you are left with scars. I went back to my old room, the room I had before marriage. The walls looked the same. The bed looked the same. But I was not the same. I lay down that night, and my mind replayed everything. His eyes begging, his voice breaking, his family's faces falling apart. And I asked myself, was it worth it? The answer did not come easily, because revenge does not heal. It only opens the truth wide. And the truth is never gentle. Days turned into weeks. People whispered. Some pitied me. Some judged me. Some even blamed me. But I learned to stop caring, because only I knew the nights I cried. Only I knew the promises he broke. And only I knew the strength it took to walk away. I carried anger, but I also carried sorrow, because love, once pure, does not die quietly. It leaves marks. It leaves ghosts. Sometimes, at night, I would hear his voice in my dreams, whispering the same words, "I'm sorry, please forgive me." And I would wake up with tears, wondering if I had truly won. But revenge is not about winning. It is about surviving. It is about making sure they feel, even for a moment, the pain they gave you for years. And he felt it. I know he did, because the day I walked away, I saw it in his eyes, the collapse, the ruin, the emptiness. Yet even knowing that, peace did not come easy, because my heart still carried pieces of him, and love, even broken, still lingers in the blood. But I chose me. For the first time, I chose me, and that choice, that was my true revenge. Months later, I stood in front of a mirror, the same mirror I had once dressed in, as a bride too young, too naive, too trusting. I looked at myself, at the woman in the reflection, her eyes sharper, her voice stronger, her spirit scarred but unbroken, and I whispered, "You survived." The words felt strange, but true, because I had walked through fire, and though it burned me, I was still standing. I do not know where he is now. I do not care, because his story ended the night I walked away, and mine began that same night. Revenge did not heal me, but it freed me. It reminded me that silence is poison, and truth, no matter how sharp, is a cure. Sometimes, I still wonder, if I had stayed silent, would he still be smiling, still lying, still living untouched? And I know the answer. Yes, he would, because liars survive in silence, until someone breaks it, and I broke it. I broke him, and in that breaking, I found myself again. So was it peace? Not fully. Was it emptiness? Sometimes yes, but above all, it was freedom. And freedom, even when scarred, is worth everything. So if you ever ask me if I regret it, the answer is simple. No, because I was no longer his prisoner. I was my own again. And that was the truest revenge of all. Years have passed now, and when I look back, it feels like watching someone else's life, like a story told in shadows, a story carved in scars. I no longer feel the same fire, the burning anger, the wild storm inside. Instead, I feel quiet, heavy but quiet. Revenge gave me freedom, but freedom is only the first step. Healing is the long road, and healing takes more than breaking chains. It takes time. It takes courage. It takes learning how to live again. At first, I thought revenge would make me whole. I thought exposing him, destroying him, would erase the pain he caused. But pain does not vanish. It hides. It waits. It whispers at night. And sometimes it still whispers when I hear his name in the distance, when I see couples walking hand in hand, when I remember the girl in white, the girl who thought love was enough. I pity her now, that young bride, so soft, so hopeful. She did not know that some hearts are sharp, that some promises are poison, that love can break you, if you give it to the wrong hands. But I also admire her, because even though she was broken, she did not stay broken. She stood up, she fought back, she found her voice, and that voice carried me here, to a place where I can speak, without fear, without shame. People sometimes ask me, do you miss him? The truth, yes, sometimes. Not him as he was in the end, but him as he was at the start. The boy who laughed with me, the boy who promised me the world, the boy who held my hand and said, I will never leave you. But missing the memory is not the same as wanting him back. I do not want him back, because the man I loved died the day he betrayed me. What remained was only lies. So I carry the memory, like a faded picture, old, fragile, but no longer alive. And I move forward, step by step, building a life that is mine, not his, not ours, just mine. I have scars, yes, but scars mean survival. Scars mean I lived through fire and came out the other side. There are nights I still cry, but they are not the same tears. They are softer, lighter, because they fall not from weakness, but from release. Sometimes I wonder what he feels now.
Does he still remember me?
Does he regret? Does he hate me for ruining his mask? Or does he carry guilt like a chain? I do not know, and I no longer care, because his path ended with betrayal. Mine began with truth. Revenge was not the end of my story. It was the middle, the turning point, the cut that bled, but also the cut that healed. The real ending is this: me speaking now, me surviving, me still here. And if you are listening, if you are holding your own pain, your own betrayal, your own storm, let me tell you this: you are stronger than you think. You are braver than you believe. And one day, you too will walk away. You will breathe again, even if the air feels sharp at first, even if the silence feels heavy, because freedom is worth it. Truth is worth it. And you are worth it. I married too young. I trusted too deep. I lost too much, but I found myself again. And that is the ending I choose. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share your thoughts below. Your words may help someone else who feels alone right now. And if you want more stories like this, consider joining this channel. It means you'll never miss the next chapter, but only if you feel ready. Your support helps keep these voices alive. And together, we can heal. One story, one truth, one heart at a time.